And when the Desperate Bicycles did it, and I found their record at Rough Trade, it was like, geez, this is it.
It was easy, it was cheap, go and do it!
Who knew that you could actually ring up a pressing plant yourself and say, I want to press some records? You know, I'd grown up imagining that mere mortals couldn't do that kind of thing.
Inspired by this homemade revolution, Scritti Politti, a band of communist intellectuals, were the next punk DIYers through the Rough Trade door.
I went in with my own, our own song in '78, which was called Skank Block Bologna. That was on our own St. Pancras Records, named after the Young Communist branch of the Young Communist League that we were part of.
We had a meeting in the back office with Jeff, and then he said, oh, let's go and play it in the shop. So we went and played the demos in the shop while people were kind of flicking through. And he's kind of, did his Jeff thing. Well, and then he said, well, we like it, we'll distribute it.
Scritti Politti took the Desperate Bicycles cover design one step further by printing the production budget on the record sleeve, which was, of course, made out of paper and assembled at home.
So, recording, £98, blimey.
You had the up-to-date information, so you bang that information on the back of the sleeve of your record.
The main cost was the pressing, 2,500 copies at 13p, done in Surrey. Mastering 40 quid, labels £8.
So whoever picked that record up could then go ahead and do it.
And we just stamped these on the kitchen table.
And that was absolutely essentially important to the whole business of bothering to make music and being in a band as far as we were concerned.
That way, the record business would change, because everyone would just be able to do it themselves.
Activists like Scritti Politti and their friends at Rough Trade were the intellectual political wing of punk, anti-capitalist, democratic, and determined to break the stranglehold of the major labels.
We were Marxists, so major record labels, given what they represented at the time, would have just been the enemy.
This, our first single, was recorded quite simply in a rehearsal studio on this cassette recorder on a built-in condenser microphone.
And our second single was recorded on a borrowed reel-to-reel tape recorder at home in our front room.
It was a decade that would also raise some difficult questions about what kind of music Rough Trade should or shouldn't be releasing. A debate brought sharply into focus in 1981 when one of the label's most radical artists announced a drastic change in direction.
Well, really what happened was I started to have panic attacks, so I didn't realise that's what they were at the time. I ended up in hospital in Brighton. I hadn't spoken to my parents for very many years, so they got in touch and took me back to Wales, where I was born, and tried to help me get myself back together. And whilst I was there, I took the opportunity to take stock, really, of what we were up to. And I listened to lots of records that I hadn't really listened to before, black American pop music. So there was a discovery of black pop music and reading of lots of European thinkers, all of which ended up with me deciding that we should try and make pop music.
Making pop music meant swapping the low-tech, homemade aesthetic that Scritti Politti had already pioneered on 2 Rough Trade EPs for expensive studio production and a slick sound.
Technically, it was a new frontier. I didn't know how to write a pop song, and I wanted to find out how you did it.
The resulting record was Scritti Politti's bid for chart success, but not everybody approved.
It was a significant moment. Significant in as much as I think there were lots of people at Rough Trade that kind of, didn't like it.
At the time, there was this question about, whether you like very commercial music or not. And there was also a whole ideology going on within local culture, as it were, of independence versus mainstream, of non-commercial versus commercial. And I just thought this was shadow boxing. I didn't see it as making much difference to, the balance of power in the world between rich and poor, you know, what kind of records he made. I just couldn't see the connection.
But producing expensive, radio-friendly pop music seemed at odds with Rough Trade's alternative agenda. To some, this was tantamount to chasing hits and selling out.
The Sweetest Girl cost £60,000. Now here's a record company, Rough Trade, who's like very careful with its budgeting. I don't know what it is. It's like, we're going to take over, really are going to take over the world. God damn. I don't know if it's drinking too much of your own piss, starting to believe your own publicity, or what. I don't know.
That was the first evidence of a sort of cancer. Evidence of people swimming uphill to try and compete in the music industry where we were actually doing all right by being outside of it.
It was this kind of moment of like, oh, you know, we need to plug records, we need to kind of sell lots of records, we need to kind of make really polished music, we need to have hits.
Well, this is a very interesting charge. I mean, I just don't think that I've ever gone looking for a hit in anything that I've ever thought about. I think there's a very different thing when somebody makes a hit and gives you a hit. And I think Scritti Politti's Sweetest Girl is, without a shadow of a doubt, worthy of being a hit.
The Sweetest Girl's highest chart position was 64 in 1981. It wasn't a hit. And a year later, when Scritti Politti finally made the top 10, they too had signed to a major. It seemed that the label couldn't deliver a hit, even if it had wanted one.